Bratislav was a poor shoemaker. He was very proud of his daughter Anya. He boasted about her all of the time. "My daughter is wiser than the king's advisers, perhaps even wiser than the king," he told all who would listen. Eventually, the king heard about Bratislav's boasting. He ordered him to the palace. "You dare say such a thing?" the king roared angrily. "A girl who is wiser than my advisers? Wiser than me?" "It is true," Bratislav said, trembling. The king whispered to a servant. The servant left and returned with 30 eggs. "If your daughter is as wise as you say," the king said, "tell her to hatch chicks from these eggs. I'll give you a bag of gold if she succeeds, but come back without the chicks, and you will be banished for a year." The terrified shoemaker took the eggs to his daughter. Anya looked at them and laughed. "These eggs could never be hatched, father. They are boiled." "Then I will be banished," Bratislav moaned. "Don't worry," Anya said. She boiled some beans and took them to her father. The next day, Bratislav waited until he saw the king's carriage traveling down the road. He then went outside and began planting the cooked beans in his garden. The king watched Bratislav and smiled. "Why are you planting boiled beans?" the king said. "They won't grow." "Sire, my daughter says we can indeed grow boiled beans," Bratislav said, "especially if you, the king, can command chicks to be hatched from boiled eggs." The king was surprised that the girl responded to his challenge in such a smart way. He gave Bratislav a bag of gold to reward the girl's clever thinking. The king wanted to outsmart the girl. He handed Bratislav a small square of cloth. "I'll give you more gold if your daughter makes sails for a large ship from these few inches of cloth," the king said. "She must complete the task within a week. If not, you'll be banished for 5 years. "What do we do now?" Bratislav moaned. "Don't worry," Anya said. "It will be fine." The next day, Anya gave her father a small piece of wood. "Tell the king that I will gladly make the sails," she said. "But first he must use this wood to make a large ship. I will then fit the sails onto that ship." The king was astonished at Anya's daring response. He realized the girl must be as clever as her father had boasted. The king handed Bratislav a cup. "Tell Anya to empty the water out of the ocean with this cup. If she succeeds, I'll marry her. If she fails, you'll be banished forever." The shoemaker went home and told Anya of the latest impossible task. "Bid me farewell, my good daughter," Bratislav said sadly. "The king says he'll marry me?" Anya asked. She was thrilled. "Trust me, father. You won't lose your home, but you might lose your daughter." The next day, she gave her father several ropes. "Tell the king I'll empty the ocean," she said. "But first, he has to use these ropes to tie up all the rivers that flow into the ocean." Bratislav delivered Anya's message. The king then asked to meet the girl. She was plainly dressed, but stood tall and fearless. He saw, too, that she had a bright smile. Her eyes were strong and clear. Was she really the one who had sent the witty messages, he asked himself. The king decided to give her one last test. "What sound can travel the farthest?" he asked the maiden. "Thunder," Anya answered. "It can be heard in both heaven and earth. Your royal command also travels far. It goes around the world on the lips of your subjects." The king was now convinced. He knew that Anya would be a queen worthy of the throne, and Anya was clever enough to make sure that they lived happily ever after.